so this is where the slides are. So if you were coming in late, I'll make sure that the website, I'm pasting the link into the website again. And if you go to classes and then class session 1, that's where the website, the slides are, or you can go to this link. Okay, so let's get started. Anyways, really, this is a brand new course for School of Public Health, but I have been teaching R for a while. So hopefully this will be a fun class for everyone. So welcome. Just a little bit about me. So I am an assistant professor in medical informatics and clinical epidemiology. I do a lot of bioinformatics work. Most of my recent work has been with interactive visualization and flow cytometry. I've spent a long time thinking about how to kind of best appropriately kind of teach technology and especially R to beginners. So I'm a certified RStudio and carpentries instructor. So I do my best to help everybody learn. Terms of other nerdy things, so I am co-founder of Biodata Club. So Biodata Club is basically this free organization at OHSU, and we do free workshops in all sorts of data science skills. Okay, so Jessica is not, let me make sure that, okay. So Jessica, try, oh, okay, so Eric pasted it. Thanks, Eric. So, like I said, Biodata Club is this organization that we focus on all sorts of data science skills. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Also one of the founders of the Cascadia R conference, which is like the local Portland R conference. If you're interested in knowing more about me, I don't know why you would, but here's my website. And so the class, and just want you to introduce the class facilitator and TA, Eric Loon. Eric, would you like to say anything about yourself?
Not too much, but hi everyone. I'm glad to be here and to help out. Yeah, feel free to ask any questions and I'll do my best to answer them as soon as possible. So
yeah. Yeah, and one nice thing about Zoom is like, if you don't want to interrupt me, but I think you should. I mean, I want everyone to learn the material. You can always kind of basically message Eric for quick questions while we're kind of in class. So he's going to be helping me facilitate online sessions. So he'll stop me if there are questions in chat. And he'll also be grading and he'll be available for questions. So before we get really started, just want to kind of acknowledge that what just happened at the Capitol is really screwed up. And so I just want everyone to be really gentle with themselves. If you feel like you have to take part of the class off today, that's fine. There are kind of built-in videos into the notebooks, but try to stick around at least until like I give the RStudio tour. So yeah, so if you're feeling kind of overwhelmed right now, I really want you to kind of take care of yourself rather than kind of force yourself to be at class. Okay, so let's talk about, this is just basically kind of all of the, logistics and everything. So we're going to talk about the code of conduct. We'll talk a little bit about Zoom. And we'll go over the learning objectives and class logistics. So first of all, this is based on a previous course that I gave, but honestly, this is a brand new course. The previous audience I gave was very much bio-focused people, and you all, I've worked with a lot of people in School of Public Health, and you all think slightly differently. So, you know, I'm always kind of trying to adjust material according to how everyone learns. So just want to say before we even talk about the code of conduct, let's support each other, be gentle with each other. I make a lot of mistakes. So I do my best to kind of keep things, you know, keep things understandable, but I do make mistakes, and I don't mind you pointing them out, but try to be gentle about it. Actually, a lot of the students who've kind of pointed errors out in the material end up as collaborators on my material. For example, like Aaron Coiner, you know, one of my students, you know, he actually ended up as co-author on the previous version of this class on the materials for that class. So just want everyone to know that this is a safe space to ask questions. And the way we make this a safe space is that we have a code of conduct. So this class is governed by the Biodata Club Code of Conduct. So you can look at the code of conduct here. This is a link. And so the point of the code of conduct is that we really want to be inclusive, and we want to be of value to like the largest number of people here, and with the most varied and diverse backgrounds possible. So please take a look at the code of conduct. And like I said, this is meant to be a psychologically safe space where it's okay to ask questions. I don't like to be the professor that just kind of drones on all the time, and like no one feels safe asking questions. So I want to normalize your curiosity, and I feel like your curiosity is going to be your greatest driver. And so I want you to fuel your desire to learn more. So there are consequences if we do feel like you are, if you are disruptive to class, or like, you know, against the code of conduct, or being disparaging for other students. I will definitely at least mute you for the day. So I don't like to do it, but I really want this to be kind of a safe space for everybody. So if you feel that someone has violated the code of conduct, so there's two kind of avenues. So you can report them to me directly, or Eric, if you feel comfortable, like sending an email. If not, there is an anonymous reporting form here. It is a form that I use for kind of all of my classes and all of my activities. So you do have to kind of let me know where the violation is coming from. So I will do my best to kind of make the situation right. It's not always easy, but we'll hopefully this will help make people feel safe. Any questions about the code of conduct? So yeah, I mean, I feel like I am a big believer in psychological safety. So I just want everyone to feel safe to ask questions and participate at the level they want to participate in. So just let's use the, can everyone see in the participant pane, there is a little, there's a little set of reactions. So if you can, so if you've used Zoom, I'd like you to hit yes. If you haven't used Zoom, I'd like you to hit no. Okay, the majority of people seem to have some familiarity with Zoom, but there are still a couple. So I just want to kind of go over kind of some basics, and we're going to just do a quick guided tour then. This is a video, like this is kind of a nice introduction video. We're not going to watch it, but it's here for your reference, just to get you started. But so like a lot of the times we're going to be doing activities in class. So let's see. So if you can hit like when you're done with an activity using the hands up in Zoom to indicate that you're finished. And so can everyone see the reactions at the bottom of the participants section? If you can't, just unmute yourself and let me know.
Yeah, for some reason I'm not. I don't know what's going on with mine.
Okay, let's see. So are you full screen?
Yeah, I'm full screen, but I also have like double monitors, which I'm not totally used to, so that might be part of the issue.
Okay, so let me kind of show. Let me just a second. I'm going to share my screen, but I'm going to share my whole screen. So hopefully this will. Can you see, like, if it's in full screen? Can you see if you mouse up to the top? Do you see this this control here?
I think when you share, like all the Zoom is like hidden.
Yeah,
So
you
just see your browser right now.
Yours, but I do mine. I can see the like, you mean the top bar?
Yeah. So if you go into participants, it should pop up. Do you see it at the bottom of your participants? There should be like these reactions down here. So
I see participants, but I don't see any reactions. I mean, I've used Zoom a lot, and I always have the reactions, but I just don't at this moment. Well, for some reason, I have no idea.
Well, we'll figure it out. So no worries. Hopefully, we can figure out what's going on. It might be you have to update to the latest version of Zoom, but we have some time. We'll do a break in a little bit, so I'll see if we can help you out with that. Okay. So let's just try out chat. I hope everyone can see chat. Oh, thanks, Eric, for pasting that link on how to get reactions. So I want you to open the chat window. And again, if you're in full screen, you can find chat by mousing up and then clicking on chat here, or you can hit the Alt plus H key, and that should pop up chat. So what I want you to do is introduce yourself. So type in chat your name, your year, and what you hope to learn from this course. And you can do it all in a single line if that works for you. Okay, so Sarah is saying she wants to learn about iterative. Oh, I think I'm going to wait a second for everyone to. It's hard to read this when everyone's chatting or typing in at the same time. Okay, so let's see. Sarah is mentioning that she wants to learn about iteration and functions in R. So yes, Sarah, we are eventually going to get to per, which is the tidyverse version of doing that. So Amy wants to become more familiar with R. Let's see, sorry. Jessica, well, hopefully we'll help you learn better. Like, even though you don't have any specific things you want to learn, hopefully the goal of the class is to help you work better and more effectively with data. So, Colin, I'm hoping to find hacks to quickly clean and reformat data. Yes, so I will say that's a large portion of this class. We are definitely going to be covering tidyverse, dplyr, and all of the other kind of data cleaning methods. Jessica wants to become more familiar and comfortable with R, so hopefully we can do that for you, Jessica. Casey also wants to gain a more thorough understanding of R. Brady wants to become more proficient or improve in R and become more proficient in multilingual and multiple programming languages. Okay. So yeah, Lisa, first year biostats student, hoping to learn anything that helps with biostats. So hopefully we can help you, Lisa. Martin, just want to be able to navigate R with fewer headaches. So hopefully we will be teaching you like tips and tricks, and hopefully we'll be able to help you out with that. Amanda, so she's really familiar with SAS, but she knows that R has a lot of capabilities SAS doesn't, so looking forward to learning these tools. So we will be talking about Haven, the Haven package, which will let you kind of import data that's in SAS format. So we'll be talking about that in next class. Becky, how to use R more efficiently. So hopefully we'll be kind of giving you tips to be more efficient. And that is a real thing about this class. I will talk more about it later. I haven't structured this to be like a regular programming class. The point is to get you started working more effectively as soon as we can. So Lindsay, I'm hoping to build on our skills after taking the BSTA sequence last year. So, okay. Stephanie, yeah, so took first year biostats in R and could have used this class then, just trying to become more fluent and comfortable with R. Yes, so that is a thing. So this course is brand new. So the question is really where it should come in the sequence for students, or whether there's kind of an abbreviated version that students can take before they get started. I do have this online R bootcamp and the online version of this course. I will let SPH know that that's available for students. Both of those are freely available. Natalie, being more comfortable with R, including graphing and basic machine learning. So yes, we will be covering graphing, and we will be covering tidy models. That's kind of later on in the sequence. Hope to become, so Sam wants to become more comfortable manipulating, visualizing data sets. Okay, great. We're definitely going to cover. Byron, want to become more confident with R coding skills. So this seems to be like a really common pattern, is like you've kind of gotten started in R, but you want to become more comfortable with it. So hopefully, that's kind of the point of this being a learning community. And like, hopefully we will all learn from each other. So Claire, let's see. So use R, but again, you want to understand the language more and be able to manipulate it better. So yes, we'll definitely get to that. And then finally, Sarah, let's sort of learn more about R programming and programming languages in general. Okay, great. So thank you all for introducing yourselves. It's really nice to hear more about you and why you're taking this course. And if there are and part of this, I do want to make the curricula the curricula a little flexible. So I have some proposed units for the end, but again, I want to give you the power to kind of decide. I was going to cover bioconductor, but I don't know if that's going to be useful for School of Public Health students. So we'll talk about that in a second. So just some rules for interaction. We've already covered this, but just to be explicit. So posting questions in chat, and Eric will interrupt me in case I don't see them. And I want you to also feel empowered to post answers to questions in chat if you know them. And if you're more comfortable with unmuting yourself, you can unmute yourself to ask questions as well. So I'm going to be trying this out. So we are going to basically try to randomly assign study buddies. And we'll be trying that out in a sec if I can figure out how to do how to set up the breakout rooms. And then, I want you to be able to share your screens and talk about like issues that you're having. So sharing your screen. So it's usually, depending on whether you're full screen or not, it's going to be this green icon. If you're not in full screen, it's going to be this icon is going to be kind of in the bottom middle of your bar. But if you are in full screen, it's going to be at the top here. So that's and then you'll be able to share not only part of your screen, but you can share individual applications as well, which is what I usually do.
Ted, I think you have a question
yeah.
about partners or the buddy. Is it going to be the same, or are you going to randomize it each time?
So yeah, that's a good question. I think it's interesting to work with new people, so I'm probably going to randomize it at the beginning of each class, if that's okay. It just, it's useful to kind of be able to work together. Okay, so this is where I might screw up, but let's try it. So I'm going to try to set up the breakout rooms. So let's see, I'm going to assign 20. This should work. Now let's do 22 into 12. So there's going to, or into 11. And then I'm going to create rooms. So you're going to get an invitation to a breakout room, and we'll just try it out for 3 minutes. And you can do an icebreaker with your study buddy. What's your favorite all-purpose condiment? I haven't figured out how to remove Eric and me from this, so we will probably get assigned as well. So let's try this out. I just need to make sure that everyone has. So Jessica, I'm going to move you over to breakout room 8. I think that should be okay. So I'm going to open all of the rooms. You should get a message. And just join the breakout room. If you can't join the breakout room, that's okay. So we'll record each of the sessions, and Eric will post it as soon as it's ready. I'll pause it recording for breakout rooms so that, that doesn't get recorded. And just in case I forget, you all should try to remind me to make sure to start recording when class starts. usually do my best, but there are a lot of things I have to manage while I'm online teaching. So having extra eyes and ears on that always helps. Okay, so that was just kind of getting familiar with Zoom. So let's talk about the learning objectives for the course. So by the end of this course, you're going to be able to understand and utilize R in RStudio. You'll understand and utilize basic data types and structures and data structures in R. We're not going to learn them all at once. We're going to kind of be taking a slow approach to them. So if there's something that you want to learn, just know that it's going to be on the way. Like, we don't get into all of the different data types at once, because I find that students find that to be kind of overwhelming. Number one thing, once we learn about those, we're going to familiarize and load data files from lots of different programs. Mostly we'll start with Excel, CSV files, which is short for comma separated value files, but we will also be talking about importing data from SPSS and SAS using the Haven package. And we'll be doing all of that, and obviously loading the data into RStudio. And I'll give you some tips on kind of formatting your data for maximum success. We'll visualize data sets using the ggplot2 package, and we'll understand how to build basic plots using the ggplot2 syntax. So one thing I try to spend a lot of time on when we're learning is how to read code, because I feel like a lot of times we kind of show you one example, and then you don't know where to go next. So if you can start to be able to read code and understand what the code is doing, you'll be able to kind of start modifying it. But at the heart of this all is really kind of understanding the reading and kind of internalizing those. So we'll filter and format data in R for use with various routines. So this is one objective, but I would say it's probably about 60 to 70% of what you're going to be doing in any analysis is cleaning and formatting data. And we'll also be doing this, so we'll be able to manipulate and combine multiple files, both in multiple ways, and we'll get to that in that section. And this kind of gets to the idea of iteration. So we're going to automate repetitive tasks in R, such as loading a folder of files. So this is when we get to per. So again, this isn't a statistics course, but we'll execute and interpret some basic statistics in R. We'll execute basic machine learning workflows using tidy models, including PCA, which is called Principal Components Analysis, resampling workflows, and doing some supervised machine learning. So if we get through those 9 learning objectives, I would be super happy. So that's, if you look at the material, it says parts, it does not say weeks. So if we feel like we need to take more time learning a certain topic, we will kind of take time. But at the end, I want to give you like a choice of things to learn. So there is Shiny, which is how you make interactive web applications with R. Leaflet, so that is more kind of spatial data analysis. Tidy text, so that's a little specialized, but it's how to analyze text data. So to figure out something like what is the sentiment or of a tweet, for example. And I am going to offer the option of bioconductor, but I know not all of you are going to be going to end up as bioinformaticists. So it is a possibility, but just kind of, it's going to be kind of your choice at the end. Is there a question? How are people feeling about the course? Are you excited? Are you feeling a little hesitant? Good, we're getting excited. Awesome. So, okay, great. So let's talk about logistics. Oh, before we get to that, I just want to give you some words of encouragement. Like there's some words of encouragement later. This is under the syllabus, and I just like to show this to people because so it's like when you're getting started learning a language, it can be really difficult at first. And you can say, oh, it's me, I'm really stupid, or I'm not made out to program, but that's not the case. This is Hadley Wickham. So he is the chief data scientist in RStudio, and these are his words of wisdom. So everyone gets frustrated. He still gets frustrated. It's just a natural part of programming. So it happens to everyone, and it lessens over time. Don't blame yourself. Number one rule is if you're having a problem, take a break, take a 5-minute break, go do a walk, do something fun, and come back and try later. So this is Allison Horst. I use a bunch of her illustrations, but she's really, really funny. Troubleshooting lessons, I guess I'll just relearn forever. So take a break. It's almost certainly not a bug. Extra eyes are awesome. This is why social learning is important. And spelling. I would also say capitalization is also a big thing as well. Okay, so let's get into logistics. Everyone has a link to the website. I just want to give you a quick tour of how the website works. So if we just go to the very beginning. There have been, well, yeah, I mean, I have to say, I give a talk on reproducible science, and I do say that big part of doing reproducible science is crying a lot. So we all end up crying a lot. It can be hard. So we're all in this together, and I'm pulling for you. So let's go. So this is the main course webpage. So what we'll be looking at the syllabus first. So this is the syllabus. This has all of the information. This is the source of truth. If it says something else elsewhere, it's actually the syllabus that's right. So I apologize if there's any inconsistencies. Just want to also point out that there is a section called required texts or readings. We're not going to be using all of these all of the time, but they're just going to be reference material for you. I know sometimes I don't teach things the best way. So sometimes, being able to see another person's perspective on how they teach it might be helpful for you. The course, so here is the course schedule. So if you just click on schedule. And what I'll have here is actually assignments are not going to be given here, but there'll be two links that will come up, and I will try to put them up either before the day before class or the day of class. The reading, so there's a link to reading. Reading is supplemental to class. You don't have to do the reading beforehand. It may help you a little bit if you want to, but you're not expected to do the reading beforehand. And any slides and everything are going to be, this is also under classes. So this is the session for today. These are the slides. So the slides will always be accessible through here. And one thing I will kind of expect in lieu of taking attendance is that I want you to fill out a survey. And it's going to be, oh, okay, Sarah, I will fix that. I'll fix that during the break. Okay, so there's just 3 things in the survey. So what was the clearest point of the class today? what was the muddiest point. So this is really helpful to me because it helps me kind of figure out if I need to double back and kind of teach a section again. So never be afraid of letting me know if something was unclear. There's also a section called Dear Ted, says anything else here. Just in case there's anything you want me to know, either about yourself or things during the week. You know, I understand we're not in normal times, right? So I want to try to be, you know, if I can be of help or anything, or if there's part of a situation you want me to know that kind of is making things difficult for you, please let me know. Okay, so let me see. Oh, okay. So I think, yeah, Eric just posted a link in chat to the working. I don't know why that link isn't working. I'll go back and fix it. Okay, so that's the tour of the website. Oh yeah, I showed you classes already. As we kind of go on, what I will do is I'm going to have another section up here called reference. And those will just be kind of the finished notebooks as we kind of progress in class. And that's just going to be there as a reference for you as you work on your assignments. I find sometimes the students find it a little hard to kind of scroll back and forth in the notebook. So hopefully that will make things a little easier for you. Is there anything else about the website that any other questions about the website? Okay, so let me see. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of end the section just to mention this isn't really not a conventional programming course. I've spent a lot of time with thinking about pedagogy and kind of the effective way to learn programming. And normal programming courses, they throw a lot of things at you, like for loops, all of these different data structures. And then they expect you to do something with it after they have shoved all of this material down your throat. So I try to do a more kind of just-in-time approach. I feel like, you know, if you want it to be a virtuous cycle, we want you to keep on learning things. We try to get you to do interesting and useful stuff from the very beginning. And again, so this is a tidyverse-based course. Tidyverse is a set of packages in R, if you're not familiar with it, that let you do visualizing, data manipulation, and all sorts of other things. And I feel like when I've taught it, students seem to be able to pick up on it. And I also want to emphasize that this is also not a full course on statistics or machine learning. I don't consider myself a statistician. I do a lot of machine learning, but you know, I fully expect to make mistakes in the language of statistics. So just to kind of set up that expectation. So these are the textbooks. I already talked about this in the course. I will say that the Introduction to Data Science course, so this is from Tiffany Timbers, Trevor, and Melissa. This is a great reference. I don't go in things in the same order, but like, you know, I will point you to sections in this online textbook. And all of these are free to use online. And they're great resources for continuing to learn. We will be using R for data science. So this is kind of the big text, but we have found that, you know, students need a little bit, there needs to be kind of an intermediate step between kind of just starting R and jumping into R for data science. So we'll be using it as a reference, but it's not going to be what the course is based on. So we're almost done with this section. Just want to talk about my approach to teaching. So I think students really learn the best when they're actually looking at and thinking about data. So we'll be trying to look at a lot of data. And this is kind of the final slide before we'll take a quick break. So I feel social learning does work. So there's definitely evidence for how to get that learning together makes everyone kind of a stronger learner. And we already talked about the study buddy. So let's take 5 minutes. Let's come back at 4:05. And if there's any questions, I'll stick around for the first minute. I'm just going to take a quick break after that. So I'll see you back at 4:05. How are you doing, Eric?
Doing all right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so talking about the format of class. So obviously learning straight about R for 3 hours straight is not going to work for everyone. So we'll try to break things up a little bit. So at the beginning of the class, we'll always have a review of muddiest points. Try to kind of go over that, and we'll review material that was unclear last time. The main learning lab, so most of the class is going to be done in these RStudio Cloud notebooks. So we'll be doing that. I want to just break things up. So part of my goal is to help you learn how to learn. We'll be doing these functions of the week presentations, so you can sign up. And it's just like a 5-minute short talk about an interesting R function. There'll be a list. I've actually spent some time kind of collating this. And then at the remaining time, we'll do wrap up and questions. And like I said, we'll take 5-minute breaks at the top of each hour. So this is a grading breakdown. So attendance is 10%. Your midterm project is 15%, and I'll talk about that in a second. The function of the week presentation is 5%. Homework assignments, this is the bulk of your grade, 45%. Final project is 20%. I don't really give exams. I feel like, you should, the more interesting thing is to have a project. And so the project will actually force you to learn things. This is my attendance policy. Please try to attend class. There's a post-class survey that will be posted, and please fill it out. As this is how I'm counting attendance. If you can't attend class, please let me know. I realize that there are emergencies and things that come up. So, I just want to be accommodating of that. How did that happen? Sorry. So just a little bit about function of the week. So I want you to have a little more R under your feet before you kind of start thinking about doing a presentation about this. But the idea is to learn and share about an underrated tidyverse function. And the idea is not to be, it's not to be really comprehensive or scholarly about it. It's really to share your experience about the function. So did you find it useful? Is it hard to use? And then share an example with a data set. So when you sign up, and we'll talk more about this in week 2, you'll have some time to meet with me before you present if you want to get any feedback. And the functions will be basically kind of based on what we're learning for each of the weeks that are available will be based on what we're learning that week. And there'll be a Google Sheet to let you sign up for it. Any questions about that? Okay. So midterm final project. So the midterm is really to kind of, it's your chance to kind of strut your stuff. So I want you to pick a data set and show that you can explore it, plot it, and transform it to answer a specific question of the data. So before the midterm, you start on the midterm project, I want you to schedule a meeting with us, to either Eric or me, to discuss the data. So we just want to make sure that you're set up for success and that the data is able to kind of answer the questions you want it to. And the final, so you'll pick a different data set and build a model using machine learning or statistics. And depending on how things go, we may have presentations the final week of, but maybe not. But again, you'll need to schedule a meeting to discuss the data set. Oh, okay, so Jessica has a question. Sorry if I missed it, but how does the post-class survey mark attendance? So you will have to provide your name. But like when I actually read the survey stuff, I aggregate it from Qualtrics and I don't see people's names. I just use that to kind of check off a list. Hopefully that answers your question. So it really, it really is anonymous. I don't really look at things at that level. Well, there is a class Discord. I've used Slack before, but my friend Kelly, she's been using Discord in her classes. Who here is familiar with Discord? Just hit yes or no. Yeah, it's a little new. So we'll be taking a little bit of a guided tour of it kind of at the end of class. And it's kind of a forum for you to kind of ask questions. And again, one of the things about being a lifelong learner, if you know the answer, try to help somebody out. I'll try to take a look at any kind of questions there once a day. The nice thing about Discord is it also has some video channels, so you can kind of work together if you want to work on assignments or projects together. So office hours. So I'm going to be trying to schedule office hours. I'll send this out as a link. Sorry, I said that there was. So I want to try to find times that work for everyone. At least 1 hour that works for everyone. And this is your time. So you're free to sign into the Zoom room, work on assignments, and kind of ask questions. I will send this link out at the end of class. So I think everyone, this is just my little boilerplate about why R. So it's an extremely powerful language for not only statistical modeling, machine learning, data manipulation, and visualization. But the cool thing about it is it's what we consider like a hub language. And it lets you access many different kinds of systems, such as databases, machine learning, Apache Spark, or TensorFlow, like all of these kind of technologies without needing to know the other languages. So in that respect, it's very powerful, and it kind of rivals Python in terms of like ability to kind of access technologies. So I already mentioned this, R is not easy. So it's a difficult but rewarding process. So don't be patient with yourself and don't beat yourself up. I think I said this already. We'll try to make it a fun process for you. So this is just a set of testimonies from the previous class. Started out very anxious about being able to learn R effectively, and the class was a very gentle entry point. So it's definitely, hopefully we can help build your confidence with learning and working with R. This is another one. Just she feels like she's confident that the course is going to help her. Okay, so in-class labs and assignments. So there, basically we'll be learning kind of on RStudio Cloud most of the time. So we'll be taking a guided tour next. So I want to mention, and I will send these out as part of an announcement. So there's other material and other events that are kind of available. So for Biodata Club, I am doing an Intro to Shiny workshop. And actually, it's, sorry, I didn't fix this. This should be January 26th. There's our user group meetup on the 21st. And the thing that, that I forgot to mention is RStudio Global. So that is an online free conference. And we are, sorry, something in my throat. So Cascadia R conference is going to be coming back in 2021, and we're going to be having it in late May or early June. So lots of other kind of resources. So any other questions before we get started with R and RStudio? Okay, so that's a lot of logistics and material, but I find that it's like a lot of times we try to just kind of squeeze this into 10 minutes, but just want to kind of establish a lot of ground rules and things like that. Okay. Let's get into RStudio Cloud. So I'm just going to start from the beginning. So I'm just going to go to rstudio.cloud. Has everyone joined the workspace? I think I saw everybody on there. Just click yes or no. Okay, I think almost, last I checked, there's 19 students and there are 19 student members. So I think everyone is on there. So when you go to RStudio Cloud, I'll go to the main. So this is what you might see when you sign into RStudio Cloud, and this is what's called your workspace. This is your free, if you want to work on projects on here, you can basically use the compute time. We negotiated with RStudio, and you have basically unlimited compute time on RStudio Cloud for this entire course. So let's go over to this. I'm clicking on your workspace. And we're going to go over to the SPH workspace, SPH504 workspace. Actually, that should be BSTA504, but oh well. Okay, and people have started to click on the so what we're in the project view. Just a second. No, that's not it. So, okay. So this is kind of the main interface to getting into RStudio Cloud. Does everyone see this?
I'm sorry. Should I be seeing everybody else's? Like mine only has a single project.
Yes. So it should be okay. It depends on. So you can. You might be set on your projects. It's only your projects. You're going to be limited to just seeing your projects. But if you could click all projects.
No, I'm still only seeing the one you created. I'm not.
Can you try reloading?
Sure.
So it seems like a lot of people have kind of started. So what I want you to do is I want you to click on it's going to be under my name and it says assignment. So part 1. And so a lot of you have gotten started with that. So I'm going to click on it as well. Okay, so this is everyone in the SPH504 workspace? What the heck is going on? Okay, so let's talk about this a second. Let's go back. So everyone is in the SPH504. It seems like almost everyone is created. So don't worry too much if you can't see anyone else's project, as long as you can see your own and you can see my projects.
For what it's worth, when I clicked it, like all I saw was your project. I just clicked start. So I'm seeing a different screen than you're seeing right now with all of our names. So I'm wondering if maybe nobody can see it except you.
That might be.
We can see our own project, but not anyone else's.
That might be it, because I mean it's kind of, I think they changed the visibility on this. So as long as you can open the part 1 project, you should be okay. Anyone else having any other issues?
When I open the part 1 project, I don't see anything except just a blank R page. There's nothing else, like not part 1 assignment or an RMD file or anything.
Okay. Let's see. Can you let me stop sharing my screen. Can you just show me what you share your screen? Just a second. I have to let everyone share screen. So let's take a look at it. Just trying to figure out. Any luck?
Hey, Lindsay, I think I can help you out. If you look under files on the right side of your screen, you'll see part1.rmd. If you click that, you'll be able to see the file in the console or in the workspace.
Gotcha. Thank you, JK.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for helping out. Okay, so I'm going to go back into RStudio. So if you're not, if you're not seeing this, it doesn't look exactly like this. What I want you to do is look in the bottom right, and there should be this thing called files. And if this, you don't see these, the notebook, just click on part1.rmd. Is everyone okay? Any other issues? Why does Zoom always do this? Sorry. Okay, so number one thing with RStudio Cloud is don't panic. Sometimes it does that. You can see it sometimes disconnects, but you can just reload the page and it should be okay. So does everyone have the part1 .rmd file open? And just click yes if you're ready. Looks like a majority of people. If you're having issues, can you message Eric, and hopefully Eric can help you out. But I just want to give you a tour of like these different windows in the RStudio interface. So there is a, this is kind of the #1 thing about RStudio Cloud is that you've got your files here, and we'll be talking a little bit soon about how you get files in and out of Cloud. But these are usually when you will open a project, you will see that there are these .rmd files. And .rmd is short for RMarkdown. And it is a way of basically encoding, it's what's called literate programming. And we'll talk more about that in a second. But the other thing I want you to pay attention is if you go up in the top right, there is this tab called Environment. So as you load things into R, you'll see them appear here. And we'll get to that in a second. So the bottom left, and if you don't see this, if it looks like this, you can just click this, see where it says this line that says console. If you click that, it will expand it. And that is what's called the console. And this is where you can kind of just, if you want to test our code, like you can say 3 + 3, and you can see it will give you the answer. So this is a way to kind of immediately test our code. But for the most part, we're going to be working in what's called this code window. So this code window is what holds not only your R code, but also your R Markdown files. So the #1 thing we're going to do before we get started is we're going to save a copy of this just in case, so we can go back and have a fresh copy of the notebook just in case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into File. And then if you go down to Save As, so I'm just going to add my name to the end of it. So Part 1, Ladarius. And you can see that we've opened Part 1. So one thing to keep in mind is that, and this is something that when you're first starting to code, I'd like you to try to type things out rather than cutting and pasting. And I've seen, especially, it's kind of easy when you're cutting and pasting to kind of make mistakes. But if you sit down and you kind of type it out first, it's good for you because it forces you to read the code and understand what's going on. So this is just our little introduction. So again, this is what's known as an R Markdown file. And this lets you mix both regular text and it lets you mix that with code. And the cool thing about R Markdown in general is it also lets you show output, such as graphs or tables or anything. So let's talk about the learning objectives for this session. So by the end of this session, you should be able to start to work within the RStudio interface to run R code in an R Markdown notebook. Hopefully you'll understand basic R syntax to utilize functions and assign values to objects. We're going to create and manipulate vectors and understand how R deals with missing data. We're not going to be learning about data frames as table structure in R. So I think that is plenty. We're actually going to be learning about for loops, but just a little bit. So as we're kind of going on, this is kind of the fun thing about our Markdown notebooks is that you can see I just changed text here. So you can use the notebook to kind of take notes. Okay, so we're going to go we're going to start with our introduction to R. So we've already kind of started the tour of R and the R notebooks. But I want to, this is something that's kind of fun, and it immediately makes the RStudio Cloud feel like it's yours. So I'm going to show you how to customize the interface. So I'm on the tools, in the tools menu. If you go down to global options, and if you go down to this appearance under options, you'll see there's all of these different editor themes. So you can kind of cycle through these and kind of check them out. The one this is just the one I'm used to, it's called Idle Fingers, but there are a lot of different ones. So let's take a couple minutes to just kind of explore some themes. And if you found a theme that you like, just put it in chat. So once you're ready to apply the theme, you can hit OK. And your RStudio now looks different. So Natalie likes Xcode, Pastel on Dark from Casey and Monokai. And this might seem a little frivolous right now, but it's actually, I found that it's really important because some students actually have had, I've had a couple of dyslexic students, and this kind of helps them find something that will work for them. Okay, yeah, so there's a question.
Can you show the theme again? Yeah.
So you need to go to Tools and just scroll down to the very bottom, Global Options. And then you want to go into Appearance right here. And there's all of these different themes here. Yeah, so I hope, Lindsay, like hopefully you'll be learning lots of tips and tricks. I've been around the block a little bit with RStudio, so hopefully there'll be a lot of things that you're going to learn about RStudio. Okay, so hopefully everyone has found a theme that works for them, and if not, you can kind of just stick with a normal theme. So this is an example of what's called a code window. And what this does is this is a little bit of R code. So this is from the previous class, but if you want to kind of review the tour of R in RStudio, you can just kind of click on this little green play button here, and it will bring up the YouTube video associated with it. So yeah, I mean, so that's why I do like to show people how to customize it. It does make it feel like it's more your own and it's less forbidding. So just before we get kind of started, just one thing that is built into R. If you go under Help and you go under, if you scroll down, you can see there are built-in cheat sheets. So in case you kind of forget things, these are all kind of built-in cheat sheets. So for example, if you need to know more about RStudio in general, there's this one right here. And they have lots of different links. So it's not just limited to these. There's actually, if you click Browse Cheat Sheets, the other cheat sheets will come up. So I'll just bring up the RStudio one. Oh. Actually, I have to save it, so let's forget about that. But that is just something that's very helpful. So let's talk about code blocks now. So you will notice that, like, you know, there's kind of this delineation between these two different kinds of boxes. So the first is just like the regular text, and you can see that that has a different color than these boxes. So these are called code blocks, and they are defined. Do you see these three backticks right here? And you can see that there's these curly brackets and R. And the way that RStudio knows that the end of a code block is that it ends with 3 backticks. So you might be wondering, like, well, this is RStudio, like, why does it say R? So there's actually a lot of different languages that you can use in here. So you can actually put in Python, and if you have Python set up on your system, it can basically execute Python code. So R in RStudio is not just for R. There's a lot of kind of built-in things. I use it for quite a few things, different kinds of coding. And there's a lot of really kind of nice built-in things. So let's run this code block. So you can see that there are these 3 icons to the right of your code block. And there's a gear. There is this, this kind of down arrow. And there is this run current chunk. So we're going to click this play, and that's a play button. So we're going to click this play button. And you will notice that there is a new, basically a new type of window that kind of opened up. So this is called the output window. And this can house anything from just a single line. So it just added 4 + 5 here, but it also can have tables. It can also have graphs and lots of other things. So that's kind of those are the 3 types of windows in an RMarkdown document. Any questions so far?
I actually had one. Just for, because it looks like we made, like, it made separate projects for each of us when we started out here.
Mm-hmm.
When we change any of these settings, does it affect anything for anyone else, or is this just
No.
for us?
So that's the nice thing about Cloud is it's literally your own project, and you can do anything you want to it. So it's you're not going to affect. You probably notice I changed my settings and it didn't change your settings. So you can customize it to your heart's content. So that's a good question, actually, because it might seem like, you know, we're all sharing the same project, but actually what happens is that you're creating your own version of the project, and that so it basically becomes your own. You own that, and you have power over it. As administrator, I can kind of go in and I can help you out. Like if you're having issues with executing code, I have that power, and Eric has that power, but everyone else can't work with each other's projects. So that was probably the issue before, is that everyone has the contributor role except for Eric and me. We have administrative role. Any other questions? Okay, so let's actually kind of look at this. So you can see that there is this hashtag right here. And this just has some text. So if you want to add what's called a comment, so this is always useful when you're writing code and you just want to take notes for yourself what the code is doing. You can start it with just a hashtag. And like if I wanted to start a new comment or a new line, I can just add a new line and just say a new comment. So the comments are always going to be colored differently than the executable code. So you can see that this code is kind of teal colored. So that's actually executable code. But if I put a hashtag in front of it, it becomes a comment. So that's the number one thing to kind of learn. And like, as you're kind of going on and you're kind of working with these notebooks, it's great to kind of take notes for yourself. So one thing that you might notice, so this gave an answer of 9, but this one doesn't have any spaces in it. So what do you think is going to happen when we run this code? Some of you probably have already run it.
It should be the same, right? Whether it has spaces or not.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's one thing. Spaces don't really matter except what they do. But we'll be talking more about that as we kind of go on. But like for this instance, like the spaces didn't matter. I can actually put a space at the beginning and it should still run. Yeah. You can see that it generated 9. Okay, how are we doing? Okay, so any questions so far? I think things, hopefully everyone is kind of chugging along. Eric, are there any other issues that people have been bringing up?
Nothing.
Okay.
People have brought up stuff, yeah.
Okay, so I know this is kind of slow time going, but we're going to start moving faster. So what we just used R as a calculator, and that's not a really useful use for R. So the first thing we're going to do is start working with functions. And so functions basically are some sort of name and followed by parentheses. And we add what's called an argument within the parentheses. So that is something that we want the function to process. And one trick, is that if you type in the first few letters of a function, R is actually pretty smart and it will try to guess what you want. So I didn't have to do anything. I just typed ROU and it immediately goes to round. So if you want to use that function, you can just click on that and then you can type in your argument. So let's use that. Let's run it. And as expected, we're rounding and it rounds down, so it gives us a 3. So that, a lot of times, you might use functions and they only have a single argument, like the number that you want to process. However, R also has what are called multiple, you can provide multiple arguments into a function. Here, we're using round. So we're passing in, that's our first argument is 3.14. And we're specifying that we want digits, the number of digits in our rounding to be 1. So notice that like arguments are separated by a comma and then they have a name. So how did I know that there was that argument? So if I just have I start with 3.14 and remember arguments are always separated by commas. If I click the tab key, it will give me a list of the arguments that are built in. And so our first argument is actually called X, but our second argument is called digits. And one confusing thing is that R can use arguments both by place and by name. This is the more explicit way to say it because we know that the arguments are X and digits. So we can run that. And you can see it rounded to 1 significant digit here. Okay, so number two thing to know is like, well, how did I know anything about the round function? If you want to learn about a function, you can, I think this should work. You can just put the question mark round in front of it. And if you notice in the same pane that our files tab is, there's also a tab called help. And so this will give you information about the different functions. And in here, it's actually, there's kind of a family of functions that work with rounding. So there's the ceiling function, so it returns the higher number. There's a floor function. So oftentimes when I'm starting to learn how to use a function, I will look at usage. But for me, usually the easiest thing to kind of start with is going down to the very bottom and looking at the examples. Because you can literally cut and paste these examples into the console and see what they do. So that's kind of where I start when I'm starting to learn about new functions, is always start with the examples. Any questions about that? Again, I realize that this is a little slow, but I just want to make sure that everyone's kind of on the same page here. So on line 126, you can see that I have the arguments in order. So x is equal to 3.14, and then digits is equal to 1. If you have named arguments, you can actually switch the order of the arguments. So instead of starting with x, you can start with digits instead. So that's one thing to keep in mind. It's often good practice to use named arguments when you're writing code. A lot of people this is what I really don't like. You can actually put in the arguments by the order. So if I said, and without naming them, I said 3.14 and then 1. That's one way to use a function, but it's hard to tell what it's actually doing and what you're putting into the arguments. So you can see that both of these functions had the same output, but we didn't name the arguments in here. Okay, how's everyone feeling? And if I'm going universally slow for everyone, then I can speed up. So there are, you can click the go faster or go slower to let me know. Okay, seems like people are doing okay. Okay, so we already talked about this. So there's boxes that pop up as you type. And so this just represents RStudio's attempts to guess what you're typing and share some additional options. So what I want you to do for challenge 1 is I want you to find out what the function hist, H-I-S-T, does. And tell me what the main arguments are and just put it in chat. Yeah, Amanda, that's great. So question mark hist. So Natalie makes a histogram. Yeah, thanks, Sarah, for posting that additional information. So we know that it's a histogram. What arguments does it take? Okay, Jessica, X, break, frequency, and probability. Great. So, I mean, this is, I know this seems kind of annoying, but like, you know, it's always trying to show people how you can learn about something. People always were asking me last class, like, how do you learn about this? So the built-in documentation is usually pretty good, but we'll be talking more about this. And then I think it's the next session, kind of what are the learning strategies for kind of learning new things. Okay, so let's talk about assigning objects. So objects, you might, if you've done any programming, you might know them this as a variable, but in R, it's what's called an object. And so let's look at this. Let's look at this statement near line 163. So we've got a name, so weight underscore kg. And then we've got this greater than and then a minus. So the way to read this is it's an arrow, and this is what's called the assignment operator. And so what we're going to do is for weight underscore kg, we're going to assign the value 55 to it. So when we run this, one thing to keep in mind is that the environment, in our environment tab, you can see that something, it changed. And under this values, it actually gives us what the value of weight underscore kg is. Just a little bit about kind of naming like when you're assigning a name to something. I tend to use this, I can't remember what it's called. Oh, it's called snake case. So if there's multiple words in my variable name, it would be, you know, they'd be separated by this and then an underscore here. So this name, for example. There's other conventions. So this is what's known as camel case. So there's no spaces, but like there's the first name of the word is capitalized. One thing to keep in mind is you can't have spaces in an object name. This R is going to process this as two different objects. So you will need, basically the idea is to have some sort of convention and kind of standard for naming your variables. Like I said, I tend to use this kind of convention of snake case in which you're kind of stringing the variable names together with underscores. One thing to keep in mind is that there are there's some special characters and you cannot use them in R. So for example, you can't use this dash name because R interprets this as this minus name. Similarly, you can't use plus or any kind of arithmetic operators. So I tend to stick to underscores. Okay, so there's a question. So is there a standard style guide for R? So there is a great package, and maybe if we have time next time, we'll look at it. It's called Styler. And it actually helps you format your code well, just so it's more readable. But yeah, I mean, Google has, I think they have their own style manual for R, but there's not kind of a general one. Styler is about as much guidance as you usually have. Like if you look at, organizations, they will actually usually have a coding style guide. And that's just, so their code is standardized and it's easy to read across things. But and Eric is kind of pointing out, yeah. So thanks for pointing out Styler. So once we've kind of assigned, that took a long time on just variable names, but it's important to know because like when you're first getting started, that can really trip you up. And keep in mind that these two object names are not the same. Case is important. So this one is capitalized, and this is not the same as this one. Okay, so now that we've assigned the object, actually it looked like nothing happened when we run this, so I'm going to delete this code here. So if we just run that code block, it looks like nothing happened, but it was created in our environment. So we can use that object and its value by just kind of giving its name. So if we just type in weight_kg now into R, you can see that it gives you the value of 55. So let's just stick around for 5 more minutes and then we'll take a break. So in terms of using a variable, so you can once you've assigned it, you can immediately use it. So say we wanted to convert the weight in kilograms to weight in pounds. So we can multiply 2.2 times and then our object weight_kg. And you can see that it immediately comes out with our answer. So 55 kilograms is 121 pounds. Well, that just kind of gave us the value in and it just kind of printed the value. But what if we wanted to do something with that? So we can take this little bit of code and we can assign it into another object. So here I'm calling it weight_lb, and that's just a 2.2 times weight_kg. And you can see that it was now created in the environment. So this environment tab, it may seem like I'm harping on this a lot, but it's actually your friend. It helps you out a lot because when we get to tables, you can see that you will be able to click on the table and you can get a table preview. So it's a really handy part of RStudio. So let's think about this. So if I decide to make weight_kg 100, is anything going to happen to weight_lb? Yeah, so no, because you didn't execute the code that involved weight_kg. So you can see that weight_lb still has our original value of 121 and weight_kg has the new value of 100. Okay, I think that's a good place to stop. So let's take a 5-minute break. Let's come back at 5:05. Actually, let's take a little more time just to give people a quick break. If anyone has any questions, I'll shut off my video, but I'll be answering. I'm going to resume recording. Thanks for whoever pointed out that this doesn't add up to 100%. I made a mistake here. The final project should be 25, so I will fix that. Again, I make mistakes. Okay, so that was a lot of time spent on just assigning variable names, but just one thing to keep in mind is that, and now I'm on around line 200. So you can think of the names of objects, they're kind of like sticky notes. So you can put the sticky note on any value you choose. You can pick up the sticky note and place it on another value, but you need to explicitly tell R when you want values to be assigned to certain objects. So one thing you can do is you can, if you made a mistake and you don't want that object in your environment anymore, you can just use the remove command. So remove weight_LB. And you can see that it no longer exists in our environment. So if we tried to refer to it, so if I just tried, it will give us, sorry, that's very small. So I put in weight_LB and we get an error. It says object not found. So one thing to keep in mind is sometimes you want to start fresh. And so if you look on your environment tab next to import dataset, there is this little broom icon. And you can click it to clear objects from the workspace. And it will give you a, are you sure? If I say yes, you can see now the environment is empty. So this is a little challenge. I want each of you to, let's just spend about 3 minutes working on this. So I want you to find the value of each item at each step. So there's going to be 5 different steps. So what is the value of mass after executing this line? What is the value of width after executing this line? And just keep on going on. And when you're ready, we'll go over it. So let's just take a few minutes to work on this. Okay, let's just take another minute. Okay. Anyone have the answer for number 1? Yep. So it's 47.5. So I'm going to show you a trick that you can use to execute just part of a code chunk. So if I'm holding down the Shift key and I'm just moving my cursor over and I'm just highlighting the lines I want to execute. So depending on whether you're on a Mac, if you're on a Mac, it is Command Enter, but if you're on a PC, it is Control Enter. I think that's also the case for Linux. So you can see I just executed that single part of the code. You could have, so that's kind of a nice way when you're kind of building code and you just want to test a piece at a time. You can just highlight it And again, what I used was I used the shift key and the arrows to just highlight the piece that I wanted to execute. And then I used Control Enter for PC and Linux, or Command Enter to run it. Okay, so what about number 2? Yep, 122. So I'm just going to run that little bit of code, and you can see that width is 122. Okay, how about number 3? Yes, 95. Okay, so if we subtract 20 from width, what do we get? 102, great. Okay, so the last one, what is mass index? Yep, great. So that's just to get you familiar with the environment, and like, you know, when you create objects in R, that it gives you kind of a good way to kind of find out what they are. So now we're actually going to get into something a little more complicated. We're getting into vectors. So now I'm on line 240, or around there. So I'm looking at this code chunk around line 250. And let's look at this line that's on 252. So we're assigning something into ages. But you can see we're using the C function, and we're putting a bunch of values in it as arguments. The C function is short for combine. And when you use this function, it combines all of these values into what's known as a single vector. So it's going to have, it basically contains all of these values in the order in which we assign them. So if we just run this code block, you can see if we use ages, it gives us all of those values. Okay, can you define vector? So a vector is what's known as, you can think of it as an ordered collection of values, and the values all have to be the same type. So here you can see they're all numbers. In a second, you can see that we can have a vector of strings. But the main thing about a vector is that it has multiple values and it has an order. Does that make sense? Okay. And if you see in the values, you can see ages. And you can see it says num, and it has this in brackets 1:4. But you can see it also has the values. So let's do some things with vectors. So vectors have certain properties. So like, for example, you can calculate the length of a vector. Can anyone guess what this is going to return? Yeah, 4. So it returns us like the length of the number of the number of values that we put into the vector. So that's what is defined as a length. So if you run that, we get 4. Another thing this can be useful is if you don't understand. So a vector also has what's called a class, and it's a way to find out what kind of data is in it. So if I just type in class ages, you can see it returns numeric. So that means that we've put numbers into our vector. And remember, a vector, all of the values have to be the same type. So once you kind of have a vector, you can do lots of things with it. So you can calculate the mean of a vector. And you can see that gives us the mean across all of the ages, which is 57.5. You can use range to calculate the range of a vector. And that actually returns another vector, but it has two values. So it has low value and then it has the top value. Any questions about that so far? Okay. So like I said, the values in a vector, they all have to be one single type. So this is what's known as a character vector. And you can see we're putting in text, but they're notice that we put in quotes between each kind of text. And so these are what are known as character types. So if I run this, so you can see I put lung, prostate, and breast here. And so if I ask for the class of organs, it's going to give us something different. You can see it's called a character vector. So this is a challenge for number 3. So you can just use this code block right here. So what I want you to do is find out how many values are in organs, what type of data is in organs, and get an overview. I already answered number 2, so just answer 1 and 3. So let's just take a couple minutes to do that. Okay, so how would I find out how many values are in organs? What is the code that I would use to find that? Yep, exactly. So length organs. So you can see that it has a length of 3 because we put 3 different values into it. So I just realized number 3 is a little confusing. So all I wanted you to say for number 3 was just organs. So you can see at the bottom, it just gives us the overview of the vector. Any questions about numeric or character vectors? Aha, so range did weird stuff. So let's try range organs. Yeah, that's interesting. So my guess is what it did was it sorted the vector, and it said what is the first and last by alphabetization. I actually didn't, that's a good thing. I've never actually done that. That's interesting. Okay, so let's talk about data types and vectors. And this is actually really important because I have taught tables. Well, in R, they're called data frames, and I've taught them without teaching people about this, and people kind of run into like a wall when they don't know about this. Okay, So there's multiple. So we saw 2 data types already. So we saw character. One thing to keep in mind is that they're also kind of referred to as strings. But for the most part, people in R are good and they just called it a character vector. There is a numeric vector. And the one thing about numeric is that it's actually, there's kind of 2 types of numeric vectors, which I don't really like, but you'll see that there's a reason for it. So within numeric, numeric usually is real or decimal numbers, but integers are also considered numeric. But so that's why decimal numbers have this second kind of designation as double. So both, to make things a little more clear, both double and integer vectors are numeric. One of the really, and the last one that's really important is this idea of a logical data and what is known as Boolean data. So there are only 2 values in a logical vector. It's true and false. And there's a reason, this is basically what underlies a lot of the filtering and sorting things in R is our Boolean vectors. And we'll get to that in a second. So for challenge 4, so let's look at each of these. Let's not do this by ourselves, but let's run each of these lines separately. So you see that numChar, it's got 1, 2, 3, and those are numbers. And then you've got a character so it's a character. So what do you think is going to happen to numChar? Is it going to cause an error or is it going to try to do something to it? Yeah, so some of you are saying that it's going to make it into a character vector. So that's one thing to know is that, and this can be really, really difficult sometimes. And I've seen this, especially in the case of like when you're in the lab. And so there's this value that's usually like less than a certain threshold. That's often when you'll see this. And unfortunately, when you look at numChar, it turns everything into a character. So we'll be learning about ways to kind of get around this. And there are ways to kind of recode things so everything will become numeric. But that's something to keep in mind. Okay, any guesses about what numLogical is going to return? Yeah, so true became 1 when you ran it. So let's look at numLogical. So you can see it's 1, 2, 3, true. And that has to do with the fact that the underlying representation of Boolean is that 0 is equal to false and 1 is equal to true. So if I typed in false here, what would the last value of numLogical be? 0, great. Okay, how about this one, charLogical? So you've got 3 characters and then you've got a Boolean. Any guesses? So it turned the true not into a number, but it turned it into a character. So this kind of lets you know that sometimes when you mix values, the answer is not always going to be what you expect it to. Usually when there is a string involved or a character involved in the vector, it's going to turn everything into a character. How about tricky? Is that going to turn it into a numeric, or is it going to turn it into a character? Yeah. So you can see there is this kind of priority of different data types. Tricky. So you can see it turned everything into a vector. So that's just one thing to kind of keep in mind when you're kind of creating vectors. Usually you're not going to be creating them like this, but when you load in data, especially if a column in your Excel table has something like this, it's going to code it as a character. So just kind of keep that in mind. And again, we'll be learning all of the tricks to kind of fix that. Okay, so any questions about those four? They're kind of brain teasers, but it's just to give you an idea that there are some kind of caveats. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about manipulating vectors. So now I'm on line 337. And so what you can do, remember we used the C function to create our vector, but you can also use the C function to add a value to the end of a vector. So if I run this code and I just type in ages, you can see we added a 90 to the end of it. What would we type in if we wanted to add that 90 to the beginning of it? Yeah, great, Casey. So to add it to the beginning, we would say ages, 90 ages. Oh, and I already said that, so you can see that. Okay, this is kind of this is important thing to know is that if you've used any other programming language like Python, the counting of what's called indexing usually begins at 0. So if you wanted the first value in Python, you would say organs bracket 0. But in R, it starts with 1. So what we're doing here is we're using this bracket notation, and we say we want the second value from ages. So this is going to be different depending on how you kind of ran this code. But so if you see it returned, oh yeah, so this returns the second value of organs, which is our character type. So that's how we get like the second value. There's also kind of the inverse. Say you didn't want the second value, you could put a minus in front of the 2. And you can see now it removed the prostate value. Okay, so we're making good time. We should end a little early, I think. So what we're going to do is we're going to work with. Is there a question?
That's it, real quick, actually. So just a reminder, I have to leave. I have prior engagements around this time, so
no problem. I will. Okay.
Yeah, I'll wait for the email for. I think you need the when is good link. So if you want to send that to me, then I can send out the email, and then I'm still waiting on Sakai access before I can email everybody. But I'll be sure to do that.
Okay. Thanks, Eric.
Yep. All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Okay, so the other way to kind of refer to if we wanted the first and third values is that you can pass in a vector using the C function. And so I am saying I want the first and third values of organs. I can so if we do that, sorry, that's not going to work. You can find, you can see it gave us lung and breast, just like the top code. So any questions about that? So this is something that's very specific, special to R, and it's called indexing. And we're going to get into that a little more in a second in the next class. Okay. So there's only 2 sections now. I just want to kind of talk about missing data. So we all have missing data, and the way it is represented in R is with the NA value. And so if I create this vector and say, like, it's these 5 people, but I don't have information on the height of the 4th person, then I can put in NA. And if you look in heights, you can see that it's a vector of length 5, and it's got the NA value in there. So it's by default, when you have an NA value in a vector, R is not going to give you what you expect. It's basically going to say there's missing data, so I can't actually calculate something with that. So if I ran mean heights, you can see that it's not going to give me the mean of all of the other values, because there's an NA. It's going to let me know that, like, there are missing values and we can't deal with it. Same thing with max. So when you have missing values and you still want to calculate something, there is actually an argument called na.rm. And that's short for NA remove. So if you make that a true value, you will get the actual mean of the non-missing values. Any questions about that?
Yeah, why doesn't it just remove them automatically? Is it just because they want you to check or something?
Yeah, so I mean, by default, it's like R is very cautious. It doesn't want you to do something that might be wrong, right? It wants you to be aware of the issue, I guess. That's kind of why the behavior is like that. Because, if you're not aware that, say you had like 20 missing values in the table of 100, and part of your job as an analyst is to figure out why the missing data is missing, right? So depending on your situation, that might not be necessary, but R in general is very cautious about these kinds of things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So there is also a function called na.omit. So the other way to kind of deal with this is that you can basically run na.omit. And then I could basically kind of chain that together. So I could chain max na.omit. And then it would give me that. Or, and this is kind of good practice, I tend to try not to chain things like that. So I'll call this heights no missing. And then I'll run mean on heights no missing. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind, is there are different approaches for dealing with missing values. And You know, it is one of these things that, you know, I think it's just kind of the philosophy of R is that you really need to kind of deal with the missing values. Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to do these two tasks after you create this vector. So I want you to remove NAs on more heights and assign it to more heights complete. And then I want you to calculate the median value and put the value into chat. Okay, so we've got, so most people have 64. Let's try it. So more heights. And one thing to keep in mind is when you're working with it is to figure out what the output should be. So should the output be an integer or should it be a decimal? And because we have no decimal values, that the median value should be a integer. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. Median more heights complete. So everyone got 64, great. So this is the last thing we're going to cover today. We'll end class a little early. Unless there's any questions, I'm happy to kind of stick around for those. So this is just to kind of show you for loop. And so it's like if we've got a vector, we can do something with each of the values in the vector. And this is what's known as iterations. So if you're given a vector, say you wanted to subtract a value from each of the values in a vector. So let's look at this code block here. So let's kind of take this apart. So we've got that vector called more heights. And you can see that there's this phrase, it says height in more heights. So what this is, it's what is known as a placeholder. And we've got it kind of encased in this for function. So for height and morph heights. So we're going to do, basically height is our placeholder as we're going down each of the values, and we're going to do something with each of the values. One other thing to note is that you see these curly brackets. So this is R's way of saying that we want to execute a bunch of different code at once. So if we run this code, you can see that it started at the beginning. We started at 63, and there's multiple lines, 63, 69, 60. So we're not going to be doing much with this so far, but I want to show this to you early, that this is it's a common pattern to work with is a for loop and do something with each of the elements. So just kind of wrapping up, the one thing I also want to show you is how to submit your assignment and how to get your information out of here. So let's go into the part 1 assignments.rmd. So if you're over here, it should be, if you can click on it. And so you can see that, and we didn't go over this, but I want to go over it now. So you can see that there is some information here followed by the the colons. And this is what's called the front matter of an RMarkdown document. And this is a way of passing in information so when RMarkdown creates like a nice version of the document, which through a process called knitting, you can provide information. So for example, if I wanted to change my name, put my author name in here, I could do that. So when you are when you're working on this assignment and when you're done, what I want you to do is I want you to click this knit the current document. And you just want to click that. And why is that? Sorry. Oh, okay. So you can see it created this new window. And it created what's known as the knitted version of the document. So if you execute code in here, it'll have the output, but it has this kind of nicer format. So what did this actually do? If you look in your Files tab, remember our file was called part1-assignment. It created what's called an HTML file. So this is, if you click on it and why is it, sorry. If you click on that and you say view in web browser, it's just a file that you can give to someone. And the nice thing about this is that all of the output and all of the code is going to be a single file, and you can give it to someone and they can look at the output. So that's what I want, like when you're working through the assignment, that's what I want you to work on. That's what I want you to submit. So do your best to try to make your code work. Just to quickly go over the assignment, we're just going over some object manipulation. So you're going to create an object, and then you're going to work with some reassignment. You're going to be working with vectors and character data. And you're going to be working with vectors that are numerical data. So when you do this, so for example, if I just wanted to say print vacation days, or let's just say vacation days. It's going to execute this in the notebook, but to produce this HTML file, you have to knit it. And the reason for this is that when you knit a RMarkdown document, it knits it from scratch. It knits it from a completely empty environment, and it produces the output. So even if you have executed the code in a code chunk, it will have to run it again to produce the final output. So I'm going to knit it again, and let's look at that section 3 again. So remember I said vacation days, and you can see that it printed the output, an output window there. Are there any questions about this? I mean, and there's usually a lot because I usually don't explain this very well. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you is how to get files out of RStudio Cloud. So now that we have our knitted document, what we want to do is we want to, I'll make this a little bigger, just so it's. So notice that there are these checkboxes next to all of the files. So if I want to download this to my own computer, and this is what you will want to do, you want to download the HTML file and basically submit it into Sakai as a submission. So notice I clicked the checkbox here. Now I'm going to go to see this little blue gear. And if you can't see that, you'll need to make your file window a little bigger by dragging this little border here. So if you click on more and you click on export, and so it will let you select, it basically says, okay, you want to download this file. And it will ask you to save it to your computer. And then you can see that you have the submitted HTML file. So I'm going to go over that again because it's kind of easy to get lost. But again, so I knitted the HTML file. And I knitted the RMarkdown file, this one, part 1 assignment. And I produced this part 1 assignment.html file. Now to get it out, you just click the checkbox next to part 1 assignment.html. You go to more. And if you can't see the blue gear, that means you need to make your window pane a little bigger. And then you click export and then click download. So that should get the knitted HTML file off of your onto your own computer, and you can submit that as a submission. Any questions? So that's all we have for today. But again, I want you to remember, and Eric will send out a reminder email to fill out the survey. So there is a link at the bottom here. Just one thing to keep in mind when you're submitting the survey, like I said, depending on whether we need to cover more material, the material is organized as parts, not weeks. So it's whatever part we're on. It'll ask you, what part are you talking about? And just fill in the survey with the clearest, muddiest points. So that's all I have for today. We'll end kind of early unless there's any questions.
Just really quick, when do you want us to start? How do you want us to schedule with you time to go over a data set?
So that's not going to happen at least until week 3 or 4. So the midterm, and I'll have a not a you can book me, but a Calendly page that you can sign up for, like a short meeting.
I have a quick question. Is there a time by which or a day by which you want us to submit the survey after class?
So try to do it as quickly as possible. It's easier. I find it's not a very long survey. There's three questions. But if you want to go over material again, just kind of try to do it. Let's just say by Friday, if at all possible. Friday after the class.
I also have a question. When would you like this part 1 assignment to be turned in?
So it's in the it's going to be in the date is in the Sakai submissions, but it's going to be the end of the day of next class.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And sorry, so there was a question on how to access the Qualtrics survey. So we'll send this link out, but the survey is right here. So if you just copy and paste this will take you to the survey. Any other questions? And again, we'll try to get the recording up as quickly as possible. We've been having troubles getting Eric onto Sakai, so hopefully it'll be in the next day or so. And our policy will try to return things within a week. We'll try to return things as quickly as possible because getting feedback is really helpful when you're starting out. So, any other questions? Okay, Well, I will stick around for a few minutes and I'll stick around until 6. But anyways, it's nice to meet everyone and I'm excited to teach you all. And so I will see you next week. And we'll post when is a scheduling time for office hours and stuff if people need help. So, okay. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Mhm.